everybody, and welcome to another exciting edition of Blighty Day Fiance. I'm Jack. With me is Michelle, and we are going to jump into Love in Paradise Season 4, Episode 7, Sun's Out, Buns Out. Michelle, how are you today?
Well, the sun is out, and therefore my buns are out.
Hey now, moon's out. Therefore, my buns are not right now. Now, I enjoyed this episode a lot. We have a lot of ground to cover, considering we only are going to hit on three couples this week. But this, and I'm not going to knock our other show, but let's just say I found this a little bit more compelling than the retreads that we dealt with on Happily Ever After
Not that
yesterday.
we're complaining.
No, not at all. I'm just comparing and contrasting.
No, but for me, it's like, when you get not nice tequila
The
and
kind that
you're
burns
just,
your mouth.
yeah. And I,
Americans picture drinking a Jose Cuervo Gold straight out of the bottle.
yep, that's, that's a universal experience, by the way, not to clown on that if that's your brand. If it is, I'm
No,
worried about you a lot.
I'm very
Um,
worried about anyone. But anyway, go ahead.
and obviously because I'm about to turn 40, I can't handle shots anymore. But back in the day, you do one of those shots, which it to me is happily ever after because it's going to,
Well, I like this analogy here. Keep going.
yeah. So happily ever after is the tequila shot. If there's a funny scene or collection of scenes or good things to make fun of, or even making the podcast, that's the lime and salt, right? Love in Paradise is the cold beer chaser.
Ah, so it's
Like
a palate cleanser, if you will.
it's the soul, it's the Corona, if you're nasty like I am, that just goes down so nicely. You know what I mean? And it
Absolutely.
just kind of clears up whatever that thing, that catch is in the back of your throat. Then you're
The,
fine again.
the worm from the tequila bottle that gets caught in the back of your throat. I don't think there's a worm in a Jose Cuervo bottle, though, to be fair.
No, I don't think so either. If you are fascinated by our discussion so far and you'd like to hear our lovely voices that we've already had comparisons to NPR and PBS. Now, I don't know if those are favorable comparisons. I mean, I'll take the compliment. If we sound that professional, that is fantastic. But I hope it's not the drier end of NPR or PBS. I'll put it that way.
The sanitized version of podcast or radio. I hope we don't sound like we're I don't know, discussing geopolitics in a tiny foreign nation that neither of us has ever really thought about.
Or
I hope.
been to, yeah. Although we
Yes,
can do
fair.
that for a bonus episode, putting that train back on track. If you'd like to hear us ad free, patreon.com/Blighty Day. Blighty is spelled Blighty. Come at us on the socials at Blighty Day Fiance. On Instagram is probably the main one. You can reach me, my husband Robin, Jack, cousin Dan, all on that one account. Email us, blightydayfiance@gmail.com. Same thing. Don't think, because I often thought when I was listening to podcasts, and I still feel this way, don't think that you can't reach out to the host or that it's weird or whatever. I'm weird and I love it. And I live for your feedback, your comments. You all make me laugh so much. And before we went on hiatus, or while we were on hiatus, I should say, I can't thank you all enough who kept up that relationship with me. Please send me all the memes, all the autism questions, all the dick pics. Just keep it all coming. And if you want to chat by email, just say this email's for Robin, or this is for Jack, or this is for cousin Dan. I can't promise that if you email cousin Dan, your name won't end up on the mailing list of some dungeon here in England, but we do our best.
That goes for me too. I've been a podcast listener for a really long time, and I have a secret talent for reaching out to talent on shows directly and writing to them. And I've always had a really good response and a really good relationship with podcasters who I have a parasocial relationship with. So if you have a parasocial relationship with me that's developing, seriously, send me a message. I would love to hear it, and I'd love to send something back to you.
What are you sending back to them?
Depends what they ask for. I'm sending funny messages and letting people know that I appreciate
Uh-huh.
them as fans.
The opinions of Jack, last name withheld, do not reflect the opinions of Mr. and Mrs. Snark Limited. Just saying. Also, we don't take responsibility for anything inappropriate he may send in response to flattery.
Thank you for briefing everybody about how that'll go down. Now, let's get into this fun story today. So, we have Suns Out, Buns Out. I will say, Michelle and I were talking, and neither of us could find the Buns Out in this episode. So, 90 Day continuing their tradition of questionable titles that we don't know what they mean. But hey, I'm sure there were Buns Out somewhere in this. Fair?
Yeah, we did look very carefully. In all fairness, nothing will ever surpass Humpty Dumped Me as the title where Big Ed dumped Liz. So I think that's a high bar, you know?
We've reached the peak, the summit, and all the titles will be downhill from here.
Yeah, exactly. Who do you want to start with?
So now we're only missing one couple this week, everybody, as you all know, probably, which would be the threesome in the church. So we're going to skip them today. Um,
The Father,
let's
Son, the Holy Spirit.
and the threesome, the troika. Um,
Why hasn't she said, okay, if we were doing like housewives style intro lines, right?
yes.
Taglines, hers would be the only threesome I'm interested in is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
To be fair, that would be a foursome if she was involved, but I get the point.
Well, that's the thing. She doesn't do threesomes.
Oh, gotcha. Oh, see, I
Yeah,
stepped on your joke. You had a better joke. There you go.
I did. It's all right.
I feel like so I was actually this episode was great. I feel like as happens especially on Lip now in its fourth season, we're I guess about at the halfway point, a little bit past, and this is often where the spin on the couples starts to happen, where we start to people who we thought one way about, we're going to get more information about them, and we'll see if hearts and minds were changed today. Um, I am okay, sort of going in order here in the sense of I think we have to start with Luke and Madeleine.
Great. A beautiful location, I have to say.
Guatape.
Yes, that looks incredible. Um, my idea of a romantic getaway does not involve outdoor toilets, so I would pass on this one, but I'm sure for most people, uh, that's definitely something that would top their list.
What about if you were 19 and going with your 30-year-old paramour? Could this have possibly appealed to you then?
No, because if I could be 19 again, I would be dating a 50-year-old banker with no adult children.
Very smart, and just get that DNR signed, and you'll be fine.
You know, a starter marriage should never be for love. It should be for money. If that's the one thing that I could change about my life, that would be it. Like, my starter marriage was about learning boundaries and discovering who I was and putting my life priorities in order and growing as a person. Fuck that. I would so much rather be rich.
You heard it here first, everybody. Now, we're going to start with a little bit of a blinding scene here, which is going to be uh, Luke's gold lame shirt, which really was a sight to behold. Did you happen to take in this yellow gold shirt? It's a little hard
Yeah,
to miss.
it was giving Scarface. It was giving Griselda. Um, I can't. I feel like that's a culturally offensive outfit to put on in Colombia, to be honest with you.
Culturally offensive, how?
Because you're basically saying, like, oh, I'm in Colombia. I'm going to dress like a cheesy Coke Lord from the 70s.
Oh, I have to say, I did. I was actually really, I was impressed that Madeleine was just like, no, what are you, what are you doing? And then
She
finally,
said, she said, you look like my grandpa.
which really goes with your point there. And then
Hmm.
I forgot what the second shirt was, but she really hated that one too. I don't, the gold really was just burning my eyes, so I couldn't really see the second shirt. But it was just so telling that it was like, yeah, the black t-shirt guy, that's the one for you. That's a good one. Just wear that. And I will say that this point sort of took a sidestep when I saw what Madeleine was wearing when they left, because it looked like the gold lame might have gone well with her outfit.
Right? That would that would have been fine. When Luke started dancing, and I by the way, I'm loving the background music that they're doing. This song in their intro was like salsa bailar taco cabeza. El Sol and La Playa, bailar, bailar, salsa, salsa.
Were you translating this?
No, that was the song. The song, literalmente, the song is like salsa, salsa, bailar, taco, cabeza.
See, I thought that the music choice actually worked with the scene for a change here. I'm not
No,
saying it
I'm
was a
talking
great
about
piece
like
of
when
music.
I'm talking not when they were
Oh,
dancing. I'm talking about
excuse
when
me.
they like introed them. Yeah.
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. I thought you jumped ahead of me there because
No.
I thought you took away my opportunity to quickly just discuss the official Barbie dress-up outfit that Luke's teenage bride, teen bride, is child bride is wearing in this. It was what percentage of her clothes are pastel pink slash purple?
I'm not gonna hate on her for that.
She looked
Um,
great. I was just curious. That's her color palette.
That is her color palette, as was evidenced by the uh, photos of her in salsa competitions, 3 or 4 years ago when she was a preteen.
Michelle, you
Um,
stole my joke. It was really no, when those pictures came up and it was like, oh, look at her. She's like a cute little girl 4 years ago. It was really a little much. A
yeah,
little much.
yeah. I I've also gotten closer to figuring out which beautiful cartoon rodent she is.
Ooh, okay.
So I think it's somewhere around. Do you remember did you watch like all those Don Bluth movies that were really dark, like All Dogs Go to Heaven and
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
Secret of Nim and that stuff?
I am a child of the 80s. My heart was ripped out multiple times by Don Bluth.
Oliver and Company, that was the name of it.
Oh, of course. Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course, of course.
Yeah. I was much more about those kind of stories um, than I ever was about princess stories.
Is that the main difference to you between the Don Bluth of it all versus Disney?
Yeah, I just think the stories were a lot more interesting. And it's funny because Jake and Maddie brought up The Last Unicorn on one of their podcasts the other day, and that's another reason why Jake and I are soul sisters and twin flames for life, is because we both love that movie and can kind of take a view on the tree that has giant tits and the weird cat with the pig leg. Again, not a Don Bluth film, but yes, I love that Don Bluth films were, and he did American Tail also, didn't he?
I believe so. I believe so. I'll
Yeah,
check
I
for
think
you
he
while
did.
we
That
talk. But yeah,
that studio was much more like, let's let's talk to children about fear and darkness
and
and
show it in
sin
a
and
more
redemption.
and show it in a, let's say, a more, I mean, maybe it's a little too much for some kids, but a little bit more of a realistic fashion, I think. I think the storytelling just kind of lent itself to, I mean, as it should, to those darker stories that they were telling. And darker isn't bad, it's just darker.
Yeah. Anyway, I think
Yes, Don
Madeleine.
Bluth did An American Tale, just for the record.
Okay, brilliant. So I think she would be like a very sexy rat out of a Don
I,
Bluth movie.
I'm a little surprised that that didn't occur to me yet because it's and I'm not, I don't think either of us are calling her rat like. It's just
No, 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 no,
it's the
no.
character that she would fit in a Don Bluth film.
Yeah. And all the animals are kind of, the other thing is the animals that aren't gross in Don Bluth films are kind of hot. Like, I'm not going to lie, and I don't think I'm alone in this, but the the German Shepherd in All Dogs Go to Heaven was really sexy.
Was that a awakening for you at all, or had you already been awoken?
No, I had already been awakened by the the one Disney movie that was in heavy rotation for me, which was Robin Hood, the fox.
Ah, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. A little
Also,
anthropomorphized fox action.
yeah. I don't think there's many women of my age who would disagree with me. Also, fellas, he was short, just saying, didn't
You're, s-
detract from anything. And he purposely had it kept like a much taller friend around. Gotta
well,
admire the
see,
confidence.
that is confidence. You're saying Robin Hood as a fox was walking around with some BDE.
Yeah.
That's where he gets his swagger from. So, moving back to Luke and Laura, as I keep calling them, but Luke and Madeleine. So, where they're on their way to in their beautiful outfits is to go salsa dancing. At, would you call that? Was that? It wasn't really like a salsa club. It looked more like a bar with a dance area, if that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think maybe it was a restaurant that didn't mind being paid to for them to film in. Um Now I'm no great dancer. I enjoy it. Although to be completely fair, when I was 14, I did do ballroom dancing, probably like 12 through 14, and I
You
was
never told
very
me
good at
that.
it. No, it's not something I talk about very often because like I peaked, you know? I was really good,
That
and
was the top of the line for you. It's all been downhill for you after that.
if there's yeah, I really enjoyed it. And then after that it was like, "Oh, do you want to do competitions?" And I was like, "No, I'm scared people will judge me."
Oh, so the
So, I
nature of
didn't.
it, the nature of that at the end result, you were going to be judged, didn't work for you.
No.
Fair
No.
enough.
It was like my happy place, and I was judged in every other area of my life. So, I wanted something just for me, you
We
know?
all need a safe zone out there, don't we?
Exactly. Yours was probably masturbating to something. What was Brazzers
That's
around back
that's the,
then?
um.
What's like the earliest?
Oh my God! Here, let's shout out a really old pornography site from when I was a teenager. This was on like the desktop computer. It was adultbouncer.com. That was the site back then. This is a
Wow.
pre-Pornhub world, folks. Now, I do want to say they had kind of a cute moment, Luke and Madeleine. She likes his shitty dancing, and I have to just say, and I'll let you jump in here, but I just have to say that as a man who can keep a rhythm but can't dance super well, um, it's really nice. And any people out there who have significant others or friends who love to dance and you feel awkward, most people, 99% of people, are happy if you just give it a shot and try and have a good time. And I think that's what Luke did. And I think we saw how happy that made Madeleine.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better. I also Luke's dancing reminded me of, around Christmas in like CVS or Rite Aid or whatever your Walgreens, whatever your chain pharmacy of choice is, there's like weird dancing Santas in all different, and you'll find
Forms,
this in
shapes,
Target, the Dollar Tree, wherever you are. He looked like one of those little, like,
rock'em sock'em.
no, they're like little Santas that just dance, but it's all like herky jerky because they're battery operated. It's like the gopher from Caddyshack. It's just like it's like that.
That's a terrific visual. And are you saying that is that are we going to say that Luke looks like a animatronic while he's dancing?
Yeah, I thought it was endearing.
Now, do you think that the gentleman whose drinks were paid for by 90 Day to teach him how to dance and to cut in was, I mean, yeah, obviously he was like a semi-plant. I don't want to call him a plant because I think he was there. I think they were just like, hey man, we got your tab if you just come over here for a second. Now you're making everybody, if you're not on the video here, Michelle's making a bit of a nauseous face. So I'm just curious, where's the nausea coming from this gentleman? Unless I'm reading your face wrong.
Small point of order from the grammar Nazi. The word you're looking for is nauseated.
What did I say?
You said nauseous.
Thank you, Grammar Nazi. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
We're not up to you yet, Annie. We'll get to you in a couple of minutes.
um, Look, if you're a woman, um, and you've traveled, you know that there are bars where it's pretty much normal for men to, as in, when I say normal, I mean it's not frowned upon and it's widely accepted that there are men at bars who are there to look at young women. Um,
And this is, I will say, probably everywhere on the planet, would you say?
Sure, sure, but I think it's sort of frowned upon in the US now. I'd like to think maybe that's my, what if West Wing was real kind of version of America.
Everybody, this is breaking news. Leering and lechery has been outlawed in the United States of America.
Not outlawed, but I'm just saying like it's not something that people are increasingly uncomfortable with it. And I'm glad to live in a time where if I were a young woman, I could, at least in this country, I'm sure they have it in America too. You can go, like, if somebody's being weird to you, there's usually a word that's written in the ladies' room or a name that you can ask for and go to the bar and they'll take care of it for you, whatever the
I,
awkward situation
you're
is.
right. And, I make jokes, but yeah, I mean, including here, I mean, just in LA, large nightlife scene. And I will say I've seen a heartening trend, which is if someone, I mean, look, you can look at people who are pretty, who are dancing and everything, but the leering, like, 45 years older than the woman or who's dancing or something like that. I will say, as a guy, at least here in Los Angeles, you get a little nudge or like, hey, man, like, you got your fill. Stop staring. It's kind of creepy. So you're very right.
I have some breaking news. Anyway, I thought he was creepy, but it's not an uncommon thing for a gentleman to ask a gentleman who's out with a beautiful lady if he can have a dance. Um,
I thought it got less creepy when he actually taught Luke a couple of moves, and then Luke took them and actually did improve his dancing a little bit on his way out the door.
that was a sweet little scene. That is, a brief departure from, I guess, what we have to look forward to next week, which is some first of all, how do you feel about I call any interloper who I don't like irrelevant, right?
Yeah, yeah.
How do you feel about irrelevant coming to join them on their romantic um vacation and coming through with some unsubstantiated gossip about Madeleine, who I'm liking more and more with every episode?
So am I.
My sympathies are completely with her.
I think, and I will answer your question. We may have to go back to it in a second, but she really grew on me because I saw. Look, there are things you could say where, of course, she's a young woman, but I think she actually showed a lot of maturity more than I've seen from her. The in this episode, which we'll get to it, but just the stuff she was saying about what the relationship meant to her, and her seeming abject horror at being, any suggestion that there was anything else she was interested in from Luke beyond Luke himself. But we'll get to that in a minute because, of course, that will go in a direction that is still unfolding going into next week, and we're gonna get there. I want to cover a couple more things with them. So I was really impressed that Madeleine had one of her rivaling the Indian gentleman from the Guinness Book of World Records 10-foot curled fingernails. Oh,
Yes,
Michelle, I can see
those
you're familiar with this gentleman.
yeah.
So
Although
yes.
I wouldn't classify his nails as yassified. Those are not yass nails.
They'd look a lot better if they were, though, wouldn't they?
I Yeah, her nails I can't do. I don't understand the mechanics. If that's how you wear yours, that's wonderful and fantastic. I pick at my face and hair far too often to have nails that long. I think
Now
the
I will.
longest I've gone is about like maybe less, just under an inch long for
So you're
fake
not
nails.
not a Guinness World Record holder, and I will going to send or I'll post it a picture because I want everyone to see this fascinating gentleman from India from the Guinness Book of World Records about 40 years ago. Still holds the record though. What I find really interesting about Madeleine's nails is watching her actually. I mean, like as you just said, I mean, what can you possibly do when you have 5-foot nails coming off your hands? But I was impressed when I watch her type on the phone or do anything. It's an extra movement. I think it's really difficult because you have to raise your nail up, your finger up, and then kind of just use your finger pad. So she's making things a lot more difficult for herself. But as we always say, if it makes her happy and she's feeling good about it, then good for her. Who are we to judge?
Yeah, when she pushed him, like when they were arguing and she pushed him out of the frame, I guffawed. It's been a
the
long time since I've laughed that hard.
Now, what made you? It was
Like
funny, but
24 hours.
it was funny, but what made you feel like that was a highlight of sorts?
It was just that it was like the fact that she, who is like 70 pounds soaking wet, could just propel this, he's a stocky gentleman.
He's not tall, but
Um,
he's well built, that's for sure.
yeah, just that he went flying that it was so cartoonish. It was like you could see his feet like fly up in the air. Just
And they're going to continue this when they wrestle later, which we'll get to in a second. But yeah, I liked it. It was the most playful that I think they've been the entire season.
yeah.
Which, of course, like life, when something funny and sweet happens, there's going to be another shoe to drop later, which I keep alluding to, which we're going to get to in a second. But do you have anything else to say about the salsa scene before we move forward?
No.
All right. So after Luke and Madeleine leave the salsa dancing, we pick up with them a little later, and we see them packing for their short trip but beautiful trip to Guatape. And we, in your opinion, did Luke do in any way, was this packing a suitcase or picking up a bunch of your fiance's shit and throwing it into a suitcase? Because I didn't see any discernible packing going on.
I prefer the housewives model of packing, which is one, someone else does it, and two, it's done neatly, and three, you use that time, that packing time, as you should to bitch about to a friend about who you're going on vacation with. So that's my preferred model. I don't like a messy suitcase. I don't keep a messy suitcase. I don't pack a messy suitcase.
I think this is a really helpful announcement for everybody. Folks, maybe this is specifically for people who wear a lot of t-shirts or button-down shirts. Roll your shirts, fold them properly, and then roll them. Saves a lot of space. That's my little travel hack for everybody. Um, yes.
I was just going to say also, if you don't have them, vacuum seal bags are a lifesaver if you
Very good tip.
need more space. So I roll and I use the vacuum seal.
Perfect. And I think Madeleine would agree with you because she basically told Luke to stop touching her shit and let her pack. And they're going, and now, okay, we can get into the beautiful vacation spot they get to, outhouse aside, when they go to Guatape. It reminded me, I don't know if it reminded anyone else, but it reminded me of where Gino and Jasmine went. I believe it might have been where he proposed. Famous episode where Jasmine threw the toothbrush and ran around in her thong bikini for like 14 hours crying in the rain.
The line that I remember weirdly from that episode, or at least that place where in Panama where Gino and Jasmine went, is there was bird song, and then Gino goes, "Oh, local birds." It's something Robin says to this day. Like anytime we hear birds outside, he goes, "Oh, those are local birds."
That's
Like
never going to
what?
leave my head now. Now, when I
Of,
go walk the
of
dogs.
course they are.
So after they get through their suitcase adventure, they arrive at Guatape, and we have this was my favorite quote of the night, give or take. We have and I should just preface this is not a direct quote. This is my interpretation of a Luke quote, which was this trip could not have come at a better time because I prepaid when I still had money. That felt very accurate to me. I don't know, Michelle. Do you agree with my take on that quote?
Not only is it accurate, it's very relatable.
And what's interesting is at this point it's a ITM for a moment, or a voiceover. I think it was an ITM where Luke says he has hope for the relationship, which felt like a little bit of a bold proclamation, but they are in a beautiful place, and seemingly getting along. And okay, and the set, obviously we talked about how gorgeous everything was there. And we also already compared it to, I'm just going to say it again, but the Gino and Jasmine vacation spot, very reminiscent. So now things get a little hairy when they're swimming and discuss the proposal. They appear to be in love. Do you have anything about this scene? where they're swimming and chatting.
Hairy is an interesting word to use because I know what you mean, but at the same time, um, I've never, I've scarcely seen two smoother bodies in the water. Yeah, it's really, it's, I don't know if you, I mean, I'm sure you did scene study in film school in the same way that I did, where you
Hmm.
talk about and either start on a negative, end on a positive, start on a positive, end on a negative. This is like
Yes.
a nice, a nice charge up in preparation for his fucking irrelevant buddy to come like fucking Lady Whistledown from Bridgerton to say, "Oh, your girl was sleeping in the same bed with some guy and she wasn't wearing a shirt." These fucking idiots.
Well,
Like,
and yeah, no, I mean, I don't you think that that speaks because we're going to get to what Luke's fears are in a second, and I feel like that speaks to a larger issue in their relationship.
do you? Do you want to say more about
Yes.
that?
Yeah, I mean, we can skip ahead there because we're just about there, which is Luke says a very telling thing, which is that he was told in a rumor that Madeleine had been with another man. And he specifically, and I just want to make note of these words. His quote was not, I believe her. His quote was, I choose to believe her, which to me is another way of saying, I don't believe her, but I'm putting it in the back of my mind and trying to move forward.
I just think it's so the audacity. She has proven her loyalty time and time over and over and over again, right?
Yes,
No,
yes.
but I'm serious though.
I
Like,
know you are.
what? This is not who we were sold. Like, we were sold a sugar baby who's not getting sugar anymore. What we got was quite a thoughtful young woman who, yes, is 19 years old and has big emotional responses to big emotional events in her life and is putting her livelihood, her trust, and everything else into this relationship with somebody who can't seem to find enough shit to throw at her that's completely undeserved. And let's not forget that he spent the first 3 days of their time together on this visit lying to her constantly,
And when you say
right?
lying, what about his financial situation or anything
Or I'm
else?
sorry, he had been in the interim in 4 months or whatever, however
Hmm.
long it had been that they were apart. He was lying to her about finances. He was lying to her about intending to move there. I forget what the other thing was. Is it really important? Because those two things are huge. I mean, I don't understand what he's doing. Is he trying to white fang her, or is he trying to like shift the blame onto her because he feels shitty about himself?
I don't know
That
if
this is
it's
what I can't figure out.
I don't know if it's shift the blame. I feel like it's more like shift the spotlight a little bit because I don't think he's under the delusion that he can escape blame fully in this, but I think he's doing, it's a shitty relationship thing where you, quote, shine the light on your partner and then you it's like, it felt more almost like, oh yeah, that was kind of fucked up what I did. Well, you did fucked up stuff too.
What
So
aboutery? Yeah.
yes, exactly, exactly. And this, so they have and it's cute. Whatever. They wake up in the morning and they have some sort of, I don't know, some sort of like play fight that was like sort of not sexual, really. But they were when they wake up, they kind of he pushes her out of bed, then she pushes him out of bed, and then a lot of furs. Like I don't know, it looked warm. I don't know that I'd want to like hang out in a fur coat or fake fur coat or vegan fur coat or whatever he was wearing.
Yeah, I don't get his aesthetic that much. I all I'm seeing is the classic of a genre of mediocre man who thinks that the world owes him something for his incredible talents, which have only not been realized because of the tragic circumstances which have befallen him over the years. CF Rob the Knob. It's the We're looking at the same thing with
You think
subtle
Luke's
differences.
as bad as Rob?
I don't think he's as bad. I mean, Luke has had a job before, but I do feel that he has that sense of entitlement of course, if I start like, you know, millions upon millions of online retailers fail every year and
Hmm.
people lose their investments, but I deserve to sell, AliExpress sunglasses that cost like 3 cents to make, without a marketing plan, and I can do that because I'm exceptional. I've earned it. People will just come to me. It's
Almost
that
like
kind of thing.
almost like the thinking behind like I don't use cocaine, but I dress like I'm made out of cocaine. That's the vibe I get out of Luke. And okay, and now this leads to another quote of the episode. This will be the literalmente quote of the episode where Luke actually says to his child bride, quote, "You're such a teenager." And I just immediately was like, dude, do you know how creepy you sound when you are saying that? It was super creepy. I don't even know what he meant. Was he calling her was he just saying you're acting like a teenage girl? Was that his point?
I think he was pointing out that, and our producer has mentioned that he uses another classic line, which is she's very mature for her age, right?
Made
That's
it
what,
creepier. He's even
yep.
creepier.
Yeah. It's, I think he was just stating a fact. She is a teenager. She's 19 years old.
Fair. Did it need to be stated by him in such a way?
Yeah, because I think that's what makes him hard and keeps him hard.
Now, okay. Now, I had mentioned that she may have slept with someone and you had a hard response to it, but it is a point in the story. He said um Madeleine is going to confront Luke's friend, who we have not met yet. He's on his way. I believe he's going with his significant other to go join them on their
Sure.
trip. And
Sure. I don't think this is going to go down very well. So she's weirdly blaming the friend for putting the idea of a prenup in Luke's head, which I think is the lesser of the two significant arguments to be had. I mean, I don't know about you, but like if a friend of mine came to me with the intention of humiliating my husband with some stupid fucking rumor, it doesn't matter what that is. The fact that somebody has brought that energy and is trying to purposely humiliate my husband on camera, I don't give a fuck whatever is about to come out of their mouth. I don't care how good friends we are. I don't care that the whole world is watching. Don't come. Don't show up.
so is
Fuck right
this,
off.
I mean, I agree with you. I would feel the same way if someone was speaking that way about my wife. And, but do you think, I mean, how could Luke have actually handled this better by just staying quiet?
He could handle it by not projecting his insecurities onto her and making it her problem. She hasn't slept with anyone else. Even if she has, even if someone came back to her apartment with her drunk and passed out on the bed instead of the sofa or whatever, I mean, that's between her and Luke to figure out whether there's an injured party there. It's not a three-way conversation. It's not something that needs to be moderated.
Does it bother you anymore that the friend is like completely speaking out of school, essentially? I mean, I'm assuming he doesn't have hard evidence. I mean, we'll see, but it sounded like it was a rumor that he had come across, however, he came across it.
No, like I said before, and maybe I didn't articulate myself well enough. Your it's the intention. you're coming to my vacation to disrespect, disparage, and humiliate my partner. So I don't care if you have video of the whole thing. I don't care if, as you're playing that video, the individual involved comes and, you know, swears an oath on the Bible that that happened. I don't care if God herself comes down and said, "Yep, I saw it all. Bad luck, buddy." That person, that friend of yours, is still coming to you with the intention of, look, my highest value, for better or worse, my highest value is loyalty. And if you're not loyal, fucking forget it. And that includes sticking up for your spouse, no
No,
matter
it's
who's saying what.
that's really important because, of course, whether it's family, friends, or strangers, stick up for your significant other, everybody, if they're getting shit talked. And that leads us into what I want to say is a grave error on Luke's calculations, which is, quote, he thinks he's, excuse me, quote, I'm the best opportunity she has. What is that comment, and what does he mean?
Well,
Mouth agape. This was like a mic drop stupid moment.
it again, so fucking disrespectful. Yeah, you gave a 19-year-old lots of designer clothes and five-star dining experiences and a dog that with a human face and a nice apartment and all the rest. But to imply that she could never get there otherwise, I'm just thinking of the sheer number of, to borrow from a notorious school of misogyny, how many like quality men uh would be lining up to pick up what you're treating like to pick up who you're treating, Luke is treating like garbage. It's staggering.
So do you think this
Sorry,
is
high value male is what I meant to say. Yeah.
do you think that so are you saying that in this little interaction of many, do you think he's sort of overvaluing himself in regards to how she sees him?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, right?
He I and it's also a, you know, a pretty transparent means of maintaining control over her, is keeping up this narrative of you're so lucky to have me
It's
without,
gross. Yeah.
yeah, it's horrible.
And then we
He's a
see that
horrible person.
her immediate response is to cry and say it's about love, not an opportunity. And then lucky Luke, it winds up with Madeleine saying, nah, I don't think we know each other. I don't think he knows me at all.
Yeah, I totally agree. So take your fucking Fakakta Fishtuka sunglasses that have already broken and get the fuck out forever, Luke. Thank you.
I do. Yes, he should take his weird sunglasses and get out. But I did enjoy one quote from Madeleine, and it just struck me because she is 19 years old, and she did have a quote which I interpreted that in her many year of being an adult, she's experienced
Mm-hmm.
the greatest love of her life. So I'm not saying that people can't be in love when they're younger, but this to me is this is like where this is one of those times where the age difference, and again, 10 years not a big deal, but 30 and 19 specifically, it's a big gap.
It is. And I think he's, you know, she did share that this is the first guy that she's been with who made her squirt.
Yes,
Um,
big for any woman. That first guy who achieves that, you're going to remember him forever.
so I'm told. Uh,
To wrap them up, I have to say, Luke's.
no, but let
Yeah,
me
yeah.
finish what I
Sorry.
was
Yeah, yeah.
saying.
Go ahead.
So
Go ahead.
I think first of all, I'm not going to speculate on her sexual history, but she did, because she brought it up. I feel like it's important to say, particularly as a young woman, your prefrontal cortex is still forming, like your brain is changing constantly, but it's growing until you're 26. And that particular part of the brain that covers kind of logic and reasoning and things like that, it's still developing.
That's a really great
um
point because I just want to say I think that kind of brings. I think that really puts a point on why 30 and 19 is a big difference as opposed to 40 and 30 or whatever other range you want to
yeah.
look at. If a brain's still developing and one of the people's brains is finished developing and has started potentially atrophying, is that really like a match made in heaven?
No. And the last thing that I want to say is, when I can only speak as a woman who's been 19 and had my world changed by good sex after not good sex and bad initial experiences. Yeah,
Hmm.
that bond, in my experience, that bond that you have with the first man who touches your body in ways that you've never experienced, does leave quite an impression. And you do feel, and it's the same way with falling in love. I mean, I don't think it's unique to being, I think this is a human feeling. You often think, it's not uncommon to think, when you're starting out with that kind of experience, oh, I'm never going to have this again. This is so rare. My friends don't have this. Like, do you know what I mean? So there
Absolutely.
is there is something to that, and that makes it hard to leave even absolute dirtbags, because it's like you're aware that that person understands your body, maybe without trying too hard, and things like that. And especially if you're, and I can't speak for her, but if you've grown up in a culture that shames your sexuality or shames your body and constantly makes you aware of uh, what other people are doing with their bodies and things like that, yeah, that's not nothing, is what I'm saying. It's hard
Uh,
to walk away from.
yeah, I think you're right. And, you know, um, I just think that I think this is like a first love. She feels it's and maybe she's had love before, but as she says, this is the strongest love she's ever felt from someone. And I think it just shows how opposite their interpretations of the relationship are.
Yep. And I just want to add, because cousin Dan put this much more eloquently than I ever did, which is that when you get that love language of touch truly fulfilled for the first time, it's intoxicating.
Very well put. And I think that's where Madeleine is. She's intoxicated by him right now.
Mm,
So, of course, we're not going to find out what happens with these two until next week, which we might touch on at the end with next time on.
right. So shall we move on to the next couple?
Yes, now let's move into Shawn and Alliya because this one is very interesting and I think we have a lot to talk about in this. Again, another age-related relationship where that's going to be a big point of not contention, but a big piece of the pie in their discussion today.
I know it's not what you meant, but when you said age related relationship, all I could think of immediately is like, yeah, when a 50-year-old has been married for 20, 30 odd years, and suddenly decides that he needs a 25-year-old in his life, who
Well,
lives
wait,
in a
wait, wait a
foreign country.
second. Wait
That's
a
very
second.
much an age-related relationship.
Wait a second. Did they? I feel like you're condensing the time frame here a little bit. I don't think Shawn got to stop seeing a woman who he was married to like a year
No, no,
ago.
I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm saying the phrase age-related relationship. Like when I hear the word age-related, I think of like my tendonitis, you know? Like
Well, to be fair, Shawn may have to be thinking about his tendonitis these days.
this was this was really weird and a very strange way to spend the afterglow of what was a beautiful
It really
celebration.
was. It really was. And I mean, just to set the stage, there's still it's maybe 7 hours after they wound down the night before. Alliya still looking beautiful somehow comes out completely hungover, and they're getting the day started from there, and that's
Well,
where we
she is
pick up with them.
25. When I was 25, hungover looked like the best day I could possibly have now, you know? So,
Well,
whereas
now, yes.
now when I have a hangover, which is very rare because I only very rarely drink, now when I have a hangover, I look like there's an image going around of a perfectly preserved like bog mummy, but all the bones are gone, so it's just like this puddle of ancient flesh. That's what I look like with a hangover these
So you
days.
look like the old woman in the bathtub in The Shining.
No, because she still had
Oh, she still
bones.
had
Like
bones. She's not
she
just
still resembled a person.
so you're just talking about a puddle of skin.
Yes.
Everyone, puddle of skin, have that phrase in your mind today. Thank you, Michelle. Puddle of skin. Now, Alliya was super happy that everyone loves Shawn, which I was really happy to hear. She was talking about all of the great comments she got about how kind he is, how handsome he is. And that was really nice because, again, age related issues in this one. Um, Tendonitis and everything else. Um, and yeah, please, Michelle, what do you have to say?
I I don't want to I just want to jump to the
Yeah,
root of the
run
root
through
and the
it.
bud of the bud.
Let's do
Uh
it.
and I don't want to over index the revision of the will and all of that, but I do want to point out that any legal document that isn't signed with informed consent of both parties, there is no lawyer in the world, or and especially not in America, that is going to bring in a non-native English speaker without an interpreter, without their own representative to sign a legally binding prenup. That is never happening. Okay.
So would
And
would you say, yeah?
if it does, you need to call whatever the American equivalent of the Law Society is. Um,
Sorry to jump in. I just wanted to ask you. So it should look more like what we saw in HEA with Manuel and Ashley in terms of having a translator. And I know that was a little bit of a different setup, but it was similar. So I'm just curious if that's more what you are suggesting it should be.
they would not have a translator, or they would not only have a translator, they would. So the ideal situation is that they go to a law firm. They offer, ideally from a different law firm, uh, a representative for Alliya specifically that she chooses and or instructs, as we say here,
Hmm.
um, to review that document. Otherwise, like no one holds a gun to your head and takes you to makes you sign a prenup. If they do, that prenup is not worth the paper it's written on. Seriously. So, and yes, is it a concern that he's older? Yes. Um, does he need to protect his assets? Of course he does. I was not aware that he had 3 children. All the more reason to look, you guys. there's probably a similar setup with Kenny and Armando. You know, Kenny's got four four children, five including Hannah, right?
Oh, yes, I was going to say you have to include Hannah because
Yeah.
he's her legal guardian as well.
Kenny's not sliding out of this mortal coil anytime soon,
Certainly
and
not. He looks great.
he looks fantastic. Please
Really
drop
does.
that skincare routine, Kenny. Please, I beg. Um, but yeah, they probably have an understanding where and in similar situations I've come across, there's a if there's a shared marital home, the home will go to that spouse, the rest goes to the kids.
So you're
That's
saying
typically what I've seen.
in general, the spouse who's not the parent of the children and the biological parent of the children would not be completely shafted in the situation.
No, not at all. Not at all. But you're not going to get what the rest of the family gets.
Of course. Well, I
Like
mean, right. I mean, but you,
you're
and
not
to
on
be
the same
fair,
level.
you could if your significant other decides to give you more, but you're just talking
Right.
about how it generally goes down.
Right. But this is not only and fortunately Shawn, in impeccable style and delivery, kind of puts this to right. Not only is this an inappropriate conversation to be having, it's the wrong time to be having this conversation.
I just want to back up for a second here because, and we're not going to go through all of the nitty gritty here, but Um, I feel we'd be remiss if we did not discuss how this conversation came about, because I got to tell you, I had a really big problem with one particular person we have not mentioned yet in this couple. Do you know
Oh
who I'm
yeah.
talking about? You know, you couldn't
Speak
possibly
on
not
it.
know.
Speak on it.
Alliya's friend Jackie, who look, it's good to have that friend who's double checking you and has your back. Um, I think that there is a far more tactful way to go about something, perhaps even chatting with Shawn. I'm not sure how old Jackie is, but I take it she's at least a few years older than Alliya. Would you? I feel like I
I
saw
get
that,
that
but I don't
impression.
recall.
Yes.
Just the way she's the way Jackie is kind of giving some tutelage to Alliya. You get the idea. She at least is more worldly. Is that fair?
Jackie
More
feels
experienced.
Jackie feels to me like a well, yes and yes, first of all. Secondly, Jackie feels to me like an internet friend queer dear with absolutely no boundaries,
Yes, yes,
who's
and
sort
that
of
yeah.
maybe possibly holds romantic feelings even for Alliya and is jealous of the relationship that she's in. Um, I don't really know. That's the thing. I don't even get the sense that they're that close. I mean, I know Jackie's sort of been around for filming, but I don't feel like she even has I don't think she has the right to have that conversation with Shawn.
And just to ask, when you say she doesn't seem that like she knows Aliyah that well, are you suggesting she's one of our famous plants of the 90-day producers, or do you think it's a friend of Aliyah's who she just, knows, but maybe, was good for TV and production maybe said, yeah, that's the friend we're going to pick.
Yeah, like I said, internet friend. Maybe they've been
Internet
in the
friend, right?
same, yeah, maybe
And
they've been
so,
in this. Sorry,
sorry.
go ahead.
No,
Nope, you're fine.
I was just going to say, just with that, and everyone saw this, but and I'm not going to go through everything she said, but it's she kept hammering at Shawn. I thought Shawn was trying to handle it like pretty gracefully and not like make a thing about
Mm-hmm.
it. I actually am
Yep.
fine with what he did, and we'll talk about that in a second. But if you want to say everything else, okay, friend is worried about a friend and wants to make sure they're protected. Why the morning after the engagement would you bring up the life insurance policy and you're so much older? And it's like, the guy's 61. He's not 91. Like, well, what are we doing?
It's the whole thing gives me the creeps. And I am a big fan of forward planning. I am my father's daughter. You know, before I lost my dad, we had all as a family, like years before he even got sick, talked about, like, we knew what he wanted and how it was going to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to talk about these things, but again, it's graceless and tactless and really fucking disrespectful, and I felt that she was shaming Shawn and hitting him where it hurts.
100%. 100%.
I I'll put it this way. I wouldn't put Shawn in the category of someone who is not self-conscious about aging.
What gave you that impression?
I
But
you know?
and I'm making fun for a second, but Sean looks good, considering whatever work he's had done to himself, but it just felt mean. Like it didn't feel like that was really sticking up for Alliya. It just
No.
felt mean.
Mm-mm. It was just mean.
And then let's see. I just want to figure out where we want. Oh yeah, I I think it goes without saying, but I did just take a note. I mean, it really feels like Jackie is bringing the toxicity of past relationships she's experienced into this conversation.
Is she, or do you really think Jackie, with all that charisma, has been offered a life change like that? You
No,
really
probably
think
not.
like
Probably not. I mean, she, as soon as I thought maybe like, okay, is she done now? Because I don't have Sean's exact line here, but he had something that was like along the lines of, yeah, like that's great. I understand and I appreciate that you care so much about Aliyah, but again, little soft reminder, 8 hours ago we got engaged and we're trying to go to a waterfall.
yeah, I'm not, the first thing that comes to mind is not my imminent demise, I believe is what he
Horrific.
said, which was
That's what it was. It was when Jackie brought up the will or the life insurance, and Sean said, "I'm aware of things, but I'm not planning for my imminent demise in the near future."
it's just, I just think, yeah. So that's all I have to say about that. My interest is piqued by what I think might be the next big topic that comes up, which is having an open marriage or an open relationship,
Very good point.
which
Yes.
incidentally is not something that comes as a surprise to me at all.
No, me either. But I guess it comes. We didn't know it. Aaliyah doesn't seem to be into it. So, and this, I mean, I don't know if this is a sign of the times or,
Aliyah's
yeah.
Aliyah's not into it because it's not available to her in the way that it's available to a wealthier, older gay gentleman who splits his time between Los Angeles and New York.
Well, you're
I'll,
right, because what really came across to me was, okay, Sean, so what you want is to have a kept woman in an apartment you pay for in Los Angeles who is there when you come to town, when you're in LA and when you're in New York. Not really your problem. You pay for it, but it's not your problem.
sure. I mean, that sounds a little cold. I
Well,
wouldn't, that's
how
not a
cold are
setup
you
I would.
how cold are you trying to suggest this is at this point where they're because are we just reading a little bit too much into it because of everything that was said in this episode where there was a lot of kind of like just kind of trash brought up that maybe it was not the day to have this kind of discussion.
Yeah, I look, I want them to be the heart of the show. I think they have a beautiful story and an unusual one. Unusual in that it's not something that we see all the time. But again, there's so many factors that have yet to sort of come into bloom. Their full like drama blossom blooming. Aaliyah is a 25-year-old woman who lives in a very conservative country in a very conservative area. She's not been exposed to much of the LGBTQIA plus lifestyle. Um, she's 20 fucking 5 years old. She's learning who she is. And I think everything's going to change when she comes to America and when she makes like minded friends and meets mentors and other individuals who are going to help her on her path to self discovery. I don't see Shawn standing in the way of that. And I don't frankly see Alliya having a problem getting to fuck dudes that aren't in their 60s.
I agree. I think that like the long and the short of it is to me is that we see someone who has discovered their true identity, and Aaliyah is going to have the opportunity to, for the first time, live her life in the skin, so to speak, that she belongs in. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they have the staying power for that. I think that's going to be really interesting to see because, if I guess just I suppose of course I hope for a happy ending, but I think I hope for Leah. I hope that if she comes here to America and lives in Los Angeles, I hope she makes the right friends and gets the right protection she needs from Shawn, regardless, of how their relationship pans out.
The other strand of this that we haven't covered is this idea of I've grown up in a high control environment. I by which I don't mean a cult, but a different kind of high control environment where you have like a very religious family, um, and a lot of judgment and a lot of restriction. And Alliya doesn't. This is where I'm a bit harsher about you know oh, I'm not going to have any control because you're going to have all the money. Um, you can't ask for money and then be mad that you're not the one who's made it.
Okay, I have
Like,
to, yeah, I got to touch on this because, yeah, I wasn't sure if we were going to go into this or not. But yes, how do you, I love how Shawn takes care of me. I love the things I have in my life. I not working. I don't know. Is Aaliyah working? I don't want to speak out of turn there. Is she working currently or not
not
in
clear,
this?
but I didn't get that impression.
Yeah, I didn't get that impression. And let's say she's not. I don't. I don't know. It's like sorry, I am just my mind's running with this because it made me so hostile in a sense. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying, yeah, I mean, look, I don't know. Obviously, I'm not in the relationship with them. Maybe Sean's super controlling, but it felt like the control was all financial in that he has the money and I'm going to go there and I'm not going to have the money. He's still going to be giving me money and I'm going to be able to live, but I'm going to owe him because he's giving me money or something similar. And I'm not
Yeah, I mean,
sure. Yeah, go ahead.
it it's not a it's not a and again, I can't speak to it. We don't know how controlling or not controlling the relationship is. I haven't
Right.
seen evidence of it being a high control or coercive relationship. I've seen pretty much the opposite of that.
Yes.
Shawn has talked about setting up a glam room for Alliya. I
Hmm.
assume Alliya has some um, intent of like starting a YouTube channel or something like that. That's the vibe I got.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
get, but something the Shawn feels encouraging and supportive, and he may have strong views about the manner in which he supports her and the manner in which he helps her build a business. He's probably not going to want her to, you know, um, like invest in an MLM, for example. Like I think that's a reasonable thing to say, that if, yeah, I'm going to help you invest in your career and whatever you want to do and whatever you want to be, I am going to have an opinion about how you spend that money, but ultimately it's not up to me and what I give you is yours. That's the kind of arrangement that I was looking for. In which case it's sort of a bit like saying, "Oh, I really want chocolate cake, but I can't afford it." And then someone comes along and they're like, "Here's the best chocolate cake you will ever have,
Hmm.
and you don't have to pay for it." I'm not going to look at the chocolate cake and then subsequently say, "You know what? This would taste better if I bought it myself and it wasn't something that I would fucking eat it and be grateful." I know other people feel differently. Um, but there are other ways we need to get out as a society. We need to get out of this fucking bullshit of the only kind of contribution that matters is financial.
100%. I
There
mean,
is
because,
so much more that you can bring to a relationship that fucking matters
well, and
besides
clearly,
money.
Aaliyah in this relationship is bringing something to the relationship that's not financial because she doesn't have money. And I don't think that this relationship is purely sexual. So she's bringing many things to the table that Shawn seems very interested in and in love with.
Yeah, I mean, we know that they're not having sex at the moment,
Oh,
which,
yes, that was a bit of a reveal, I thought. The way that came out, I don't know, I just sort of assumed they hadn't mentioned it, so I just assumed, like, hey, I'm sure they're having a good time. But it sounds like they have been intimate before, but it's just on this trip they have not been intimate. Did you get it that way?
yeah. But um, and I would really appreciate, no pressure, but anyone who's gone through a transition, I would love to know, not from like a a prurient standpoint of like, oh, I need to know all the gory details, but I just mean like, how do you approach that situation and how do you want to be approached, and like what kind of conversations do you have with your partner if you've been together before you transitioned, and like, does the genitalia you possess have an effect on, how do you deal with stuff like that? Do you still want to call it a penis? Do you want to call it something else? Do you not want to use that? Do you not want to have the kind of sex that you were having before? I think that I would find that all fascinating, you know?
Absolutely. I would
Um,
too, and I would encourage anyone. We're very positive here and open to all
we're
experiences.
very, yeah, we're very sex positive, very inclusive, and we are absolutely not going to share anything. Again, if you send email bladydayfiance@gmail.com, whoever you feel most comfortable with, put their name on it. The rest of us won't read it. We have an agreement.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
So I feel okay. You think that's about a wrap on them for the
Yeah, I think
moment?
so. I think
We'll leave
so.
that. We're going to
Yeah.
see what happens next week, and we will touch on everybody on the next time on because I don't know. I've been having fun with those lately. It's like a little preamble for next week. And now we're going to get to a couple of people here who this to me is going to mark them turning the corner a little bit. I think we see a lot more, and this is very interesting. Of course, we are talking about Annie and Kyle, who I'm not look, I said Kyle without saying anything mean because I don't have anything mean to say this week and I have some questions, but nothing mean.
Well, I think it's important that as the resident autistic person on our team, that I talk about some things. We can smell our own, and identify our own, and often seek each other out without knowing. For those of you who aren't familiar, I was diagnosed late. My first diagnosis as a teenager was bipolar disorder, which is what I thought I had for 20 years. It was subsequently revealed that I was one of many, possibly millions, of women who was misdiagnosed, and the ADHD and autism went under the radar. So I will say that, since that diagnosis, I've read a lot, I've listened a lot, I've learned a lot. I'm by no means, you know, an academic authority on the subject, but I can speak from personal experience and the knowledge that I've gleaned from reliable sources. So I think there are some neurodivergent traits there. And I think it came out in this episode, and it did make me see him in a different light. You can see how much he struggles to enact a facsimile of what he thinks normal human behavior is, or what he processes as normal human behavior. It's almost like he's like a lot of autistic people, and this was something that I did all the time when I was younger. They
Hmm.
imitate social interactions that they see on TV, and they kind of learn how to interact that way. And this is why Sesame Street is so important, you guys, honestly.
If I
And
may
children's
ask, and I'm not
programming in general. Yes, no, please go
interrupting,
ahead.
is this masking, which I've seen as a term? Would this be masking for from an autistic person, picking up things from television to try to, do what think you should do if it's not coming naturally to you?
Yeah, that's masking is complicated because it's multifaceted, but one type of masking, yes, is enacting and engaging in social conversations or whatever in a way that feels unnatural to you, because you're consciously aware that what feels natural to you isn't maybe socially acceptable, or isn't the way that you've seen it on TV, or the way, or like, I used to just I studied art for many years, and part of that was, I would go to places and paint for a while. And half of what I was doing was watching and observing human behavior, and just seeing how people interacted. And, I think he's had a couple of rehearsals in his head about what this looks like. And yeah, it's not warm. It's not natural. It's, disarming, and maybe not in a good way. I don't know how I would feel about my first introduction to someone being like, "Hi, my name's Kyle. I'm a sperm donor."
Well,
Um,
I mean, that's sort of like one of the points where I was like, because you and I talked about this before we were recording, and you were shedding some light on some stuff, but that was one of the moments where I was like, okay, is he a little different? Because that's not necessarily, that's like, saying the exact thing you're trying not to say in a situation, like, I shouldn't start with this, and then that's what spills out of your mouth.
yeah, he is a bit different. That, I would argue, is a very separate issue to his fucked up approach to romance and dating, which I think is unrelated, but maybe not assisted by, in a positive way, by his neurodiversity. That's a completely separate issue. To decide that when you're 22 or whatever, that the only way that you think a woman is going to want to be with you is if you're giving her something, and you don't value your own emotional contributions or intellectual contributions or anything else, let alone sexual contributions. It was like a really disturbing kind of villain origin story for him. This idea that, like, he always felt that he's always had this, I think, like, kind of internalized misogyny that is so deep, and such a low opinion of women, you know, that women
But
only.
do you think it's that informed though, from his perspective, like
How
on
do you mean?
experience and informed by experience, and because it feels almost like he's saying, and just going to jump around here a little bit within this, he does, we get to a point where he's saying that he really feels like Annie could be someone who he could be in a relationship with, and he's never had a relationship before. We really sort of find out today.
Yeah. No, I don't. I think he decided, I think Oh, sorry, jostling the computer a little bit, but I can only sit like that for so long. The He pretty much made up his mind, and I don't know what that was. I don't know if that's coming from his family of origin, who we don't seem to know a lot about. I don't know if that's coming from some kind of religious thing.
Oh, okay. Good point.
Uh,
Good point.
yeah, I don't know where that comes from. I would have loved one of Ani's probing questions to be, where did you get this idea in your mind? Rather than, there's a very dark part of me that finds that appealing and makes me want to be your mom and your girlfriend at the same time.
Definitely heavy vibes of that. I am curious as to what do you think Kyle really meant when he was talking about that obviously sperm banks are sterile, they're supposed to be, but is it almost like the mixing of two different things here by Kyle? Like there's the I want to be a sperm donor, I want to be in a relationship, but I can't do a because he can't do a sperm bank because he says it feels too clinical, and he's trying to make this personal when I mean by definition being a sperm donor is clinical. Obviously, not necessarily in the way he does it, but in general, if you go to a sperm bank, I guess more of a specific question, do you think he's not going the sperm bank route because this is his inroads to be able to be with women, which is something he wants to do?
Well, last week we touched on my belief that he doesn't work with sperm banks because that way because he doesn't want to be rejected, basically,
Oh, right. Of course. Of course.
for any reason, because something happened there, whether it's nature or nurture, something happened.
That doesn't happen on its
um
own, you're saying.
yeah, I'm just saying he would get, I talked about this last week, so I don't want to over index this, but uh fertility clinics have checks and standards and screenings for a reason, and it is to protect the mother and the child that's being brought into the world. And without any of those checks, you're exposing yourself to any number of tragic circumstances that could befall you, you know, and your child. And he
Of course.
does. So, anyway, moving away from that, is he using this as an inroad to intimacy? Absolutely. And that's what's so creepy about it. That kid, that German kid that he has,
His
is
6 year old,
not
his 6 year old son?
his maybe 6-year old son, is not his child.
Right, right.
It's not
And
in any way his child.
And this, so would, is this where, is this the point in this story where we've kind of hit, there's the Law and Orders people talk about, and there's a whole bunch of crime procedurals where there's a, sperm doctor.
Reproductive abuser.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. That's the term where it's someone who is, in a megalomaniacal way trying to populate the world with their own children.
There's somebody out there going, "Oh, but when Elon Musk does it, it's fine because he's rich."
Musk lovers, you've heard Michelle's feelings.
No, I'm saying that's always the argument, right?
Yes,
It's like
yes.
it's the 50 shade. It's similar to the 50 Shades of Grey thing, where it's like, oh, it's abuse if he's poor, but it's like S and
It's hot.
BDSM if he's got money. Yeah, come on,
And
please.
I'm not trying to go too far back here. I did just want to ask you because I was surprised, and forgive me, I'm forgetting Annie's beautiful friend's name. But
I think it's Stephanie.
okay, let's go with Stephanie. Were you surprised that Stephanie, she had a lot of concerns last week, and then this week suddenly she's like, "Oh, yeah, he seems like a great guy. I think they have a good shot." And Annie's smart. She's a smart woman. She knows what she's doing, and Yeah, he seems very nice. I think they're good.
Yeah, I was surprised by that. I thought that was strange, but then Ani is strange and has an interesting worldview, and I imagine she shares that with her friend.
100%. And in regards to Ani, I guess one thing, that I think we should talk about with them is, and we kind of touched it, but we didn't go into it yet, and it's probably the last important point about them this week, which is Kyle really trying to actually be affectionate and try to approximate what he believes Annie needs slash wants from him. And I was curious what you saw in that attempt from both of them, really.
And trigger warning for sexual assault of a minor, but there's sort of like a Mary Kay Letourneau vibe about this relationship. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, it's consensual, but I just feel like
Mary Kay
uh,
Letourneau, by the way, R.I.P. She was what was that, about 30 years ago, 25 years ago? A very famous teacher who had children with her 12-year-old student. Just want to fill in everyone in
yes,
case they did not know
12.
that. Yes, 12 years
Yeah.
old.
There's I just feel like they're not on the same level at all emotionally or psychologically, and I'm just saying it's different, and I think that they need to wind all the way back and start with a friendship and then see if something romantic evolves from that without a point system, without this weird Pygmalion thing of like, I need to fix you and turn you into a, put you in a suit or whatever. I don't know. I think they need to approach this very differently because someone is going to get hurt. This is not going in a good direction.
No, certainly not. I do think I just want to say you have a really good point because they have to unravel this. They've sort of unnaturally skipped steps, and now they're trying to build a relationship from like kind of like a middle point, but they don't have any of that foundation to really be
Right.
building anything. And so that's where it becomes sort of nebulous. And, you know, um, yeah, I think that wraps up my thoughts on those two. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
If you've enjoyed what you've heard here, if you'd like to see video, you can head on over to our Patreon, ad free episodes for everyone. The first tier is $5 a month. For that, you get all of our delightful programming ad free. You also get a weekly bonus episode. If you are on the $10 Princess Charlotte tier, you get video. Um, on the $15 tier, you get to choose the bonus episodes that we cover. So, something for everybody all in there. We appreciate your support very much. Find us on the socials. It's usually at Blighty Day Fiance. Um, Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just look up Blighty Day Fiance. And yeah, that's everything from me. Jack, thank you so much for hosting and doing the heavy lifting. Thank you to our producer, Cousin Dan, without whom this conversation would be 3 hours long instead of an hour and a half long. And hopefully it'll be shorter than that once edited. Um, yeah, just thank you to everyone and anyone who supports us. We appreciate it so much. We really love what we do here. We have such a good time, and we just want to share that with you.
And just to close out here, some suggestions on the way out here. If you have nothing to do in the next week and you are wondering what Alex and Adriana were doing, I would suggest either of those two things might be fun for you. Either go out and find threesomes in this world or go to church. Those are your two options for me this week, folks. And thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure as always. And I look forward to speaking to all of you again soon.